Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this lecture of strength of material. Today, we are going to cover a very important topic from the gate point of view, and that is stress strain diagram. This topic comes under the chapter of property of material, and today we are going to cover stress strain diagram, strain or work hardening, true stress strain diagram, elastoplastic behavior. In addition to that, many definitions which are really important from the gate exam point of view. We are not going to solve too many numerical in this chapter, but there are many concepts, and I request all of you that you should prepare notes and you should read that notes time to time. We should start with making the stress strain diagram of the mild steel. After this, we will also make stress strain diagram for other materials like aluminum, cast iron, and many more materials. So, first we should know that is what is elastic behavior, what is plastic behavior, as well as what is brittle condition. So, elastic means if you are applying a force and if you will remove the force, the body will get its original shape. In case of plastic behavior, if you will apply the load, there will be a permanent deformation in the body. And brittle means you are applying the load, there will not be any change in the length, and suddenly there will be a failure. And these three properties are actually important to understand the stress strain diagram of different material. So our first material is low carbon or medium carbon steel, and normally considered as the mild steel. And this diagram is actually prepared by doing an experiment which is done on a universal testing machine. We call the machine that universal testing machine, and the testing is known as the tensile testing. What we do, we have a workpiece of a gauge length. Normally the length of this workpiece is defined as the gauge length. The cross-section area of the workpiece is A naught. If I will apply force on this workpiece using the universal testing machine and also measure the displacement in this workpiece, we can make a graph between the force applied and the change in length. However, instead of using this force and changing length, we make this graph with respect to the stress. And how we make the stress? We divide this force by the initial area of this bar. So this become your stress, and here we divide this length, change in length, by the original length, and this become your strain. So when I start applying load on this bar, what I observed that for initial few value, the load is proportional to strain, and this is a straight line, linear curve. After this, the load curve become little curvy and it reaches to a peak and then it drops. And suddenly we observe that a abrupt increase in the length. Then again we apply the load and the length increases, and after a particular position where we note that the maximum stress applied, the material got failed and rupture is there. So this is your stress strain diagram for a mild steel beam. And now let's understand what are these different points. So let's consider the first point, which is let's from 0 to 1, and this 0 to 1 representing a linear curve. What your stress is proportional to your strain, and this is the zone where the Hooke's law applied. Hooke's law says that your stress is proportional to strain, and the slope of this particular section where you are having straight line, the slope indicate a constant, that is your modulus of elasticity or Young's modulus or elastic constant, that is the ratio of stress by strain. So what is E here? E is your elastic constant. We also known is this elastic constant as Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity. So this is a material property and it does not change by applying the load. So please remember that E is a material property and independent of the external loading. After this linear curve, there is a curved portion, and in this curved portion we note a point. After that, sudden change in the length of the material. So here I should mention a point 2, and close to the point 2 again there is a point 3. And why I am putting these 2 points? Because particularly in steel, this phenomena only observed in the steel, otherwise for other material we only found 1 point. So this 1 and 2 point actually representing the elastic condition, means up to point 1 the material is elastic, showing that if I will remove the load it will go back to its original position. Similarly, when I am talking about point 2, still material is elastic. So actually what is happening in your workpiece, when you will apply the load there will be change in the length, and suppose this is a point where my stress value become at sigma 1, and thus there is corresponding some change in length, let's epsilon 1. If I will remove the load, the material will go back to its original position and there will not be any permanent deformation. So we says, so we say that up to the point 1 the material is elastic, and also it is showing a linear behavior. After 1 or between 1 to 2 material is still elastic. So I will say that from 1 to 2 it is showing the elastic behavior, but it is not linear, a non-linear curve. So the curve is non-linear. Please remember that point 1 to 2 is elastic but non-linear curve, and 2 is what? 2 is your actually limit. After that there is a permanent deformation. So we define two limits. One, sigma 1, actually known as the proportional limit, because up to this point your stress and strain are proportional to each other. So sigma 1 is your proportional limit and sigma 2 is your elastic limit. Elastic limits indicate that up to this point, if you will remove the load, the material will go back to its original position. 3 point actually indicates the point after that there is a plastic deformation, means up at point 3 plastic deformation start, there will be permanent set of change in length. So 3 point actually denote a yield point, and beyond 3 there is abrupt change in the length, means you are not increasing the load but there is a increase in the length, like there is a flow. So this portion which is here from 3, let's make this another point 3a, and this is 4. So from 3a to 4 there is a plastic flow, kind of plastic flow. And why I am saying it flow? Because it is like a liquid, we are not increasing the load, and for a given loading the material is changing its length. So we call the 3 to 4 region is your plastic flow region. And please remember, all these phenomena normally observed only in mild steel. So your point 3 actually showing a plastic state, and we call this is as the yield point. And why we call it yield point? Because we say that after this there is an abrupt change in length, material start yielding. After point 4 again we observe that we have to apply load to increase the length, but from 3a to 4 we are not increasing the load but there is a change in length. Beyond 4 again we have to increase the load. So from 4 to 5 we have to increase the load increase, and also the length increase. But when we compare the 3-4 region with respect to 0-1, at 4-5 region relatively we have to apply less load and there is a significant change in length. However, during the 0 to 1, for a large load there is a small change in length. So from 4 to 5 region is normally known as strain hardening region. During the complete tensile testing, this is the value of maximum load, and after point 5 we cannot control anything and there is a sudden increase in the length and we observed a rupture or failure. So this 6 point is actually representing the rupture of material. And what happens actually in your system, when you will see this state and you will cross check with your material, you will find that there is a neck formation. What happens? Because the length is continuously increasing, so due to the increase in the length the material cross section area got reduced at some place, and there is a formation of neck region, the low cross section area region, we call it the neck. So because of the formation of the neck after point 0.5, there is a sudden increase in the length and of failure. So from 5 to 6 we call necking or local necking. So 5 to 6 is necking, 4 to 5 strain hardening, 3A to 4 plastic flow. From 3 and 3A, actually these 3 and 3A represent the yield point, two yield point, upper yield point and lower yield point. I'll also cover this, what is upper yield point and lower yield point. 2 is elastic limit, 1 is proportional limit, and this is your linear region, and the whole stress strain diagram is made for the mild steel material. In addition to that, observe the failure mode. You will find that there is a cup cone type of failure. Means when you will see one part workpiece, there will be a hole kind of thing. On the other hand, you will find there is a cone kind of thing. So this kind of failure we call the cup and cone failure, and in case of mild steel the failure is along the shear plane or 45 degrees. So this is your stress strain diagram for steel, and if I will summarize the complete point, from 0 to 1 it is elastic, Hooke's law follow, proportional limit, stress is proportional to strain, and we call this modulus of elasticity. From 1 to 2 the elastic region, non-linear, 2 is elastic limit, 2 to here we should say that after 2 to 3 it's plastic, 3 becomes the yield point, after 3 to 3A we call it upper and lower yield point, from 3A to 4 it's a plastic flow, and from 4 to 5 there's a strain hardening, and beyond 5 there's a necking. So you have to remember all these points to answer the questions come in the competitive exams. After understanding this, let's consider these 2 points which I said, that the yield point and the strain hardening. And to understand that, we have to just go to the microscopic level. This is the crystal structure of a material, and normally in the structure there are some defects. And which sort of defect we define? We define the line defect and the point defect. I am not going in too much detail of this section, but for strength pointer cut for strength of material point of view, we need to understand these two defects and how these defects are related to strain hardening and upper and lower yield point. So there are two types of defect. One is the line defect, another one is the point defect. Line defect means the dislocation. Here you can see that these are the structure, and suddenly we are having an incomplete line. So this is what this is called a dislocation, and it is incomplete line. Similarly, we have some impurities or missing space, and that is called the point defect. I am particularly indicating one point defect, that is known as the impurity. So these two defects are responsible for strain hardening as well as for the upper and lower yield point. And how so? As I have shown you that these 2 point indicating upper and lower yield point, and when you cross the upper yield point there is a sudden change in length. And why it happened? So you see here that if this is my material and I am putting some force on the material, it will try to increase the length, but this impurity is actually working as a speed breaker. So it will provide a locking between the two molecules, and it will not allow material to increase the length. But what happened when we increase the force value up to point 1, we are increasing the force value, and suddenly we observe that this impurity get broken. And when it get broken, there is a sudden increase in the length because we have already applied a large force, and as it will break there will be abrupt increase in the length, and therefore we observe that this plastic flow kind of phenomena, and this all these things are responsible because of the point defect or the impurity. Second is the line defect. What happened when we apply the load on the material? When we apply the load on the material, the dislocation moved. The dislocation moved from the mid position to one extreme position, and because of that, what happened? The material become more dense, or the molecules become more packed, and because of that, the strength of the material increase. And this particular phenomena is known as the strain or work hardening. What happened actually in the strain hardening? You please remember that this strain hardening is there because of the line defect or the dislocation. And what happened in the material? When we apply the load, the dislocation moves, and because of the motion of the dislocation, the material become more denser and its strength increase. I am not going beyond that. You please remember that because of the strain hardening, the strength increases. So this is all about your stress strain diagram and strain hardening upper yield point, lower yield point of mild steel. After mild steel, let's see the stress strain diagram of other material. So first, make the free body stress strain diagram of aluminium. And I would like to make it along with your previous stress strain diagram. So this is for the mild steel. In case of aluminium, your Young's modulus is less than the steel, as well as or your elastic limit is also less than the steel. So in case of aluminium, your graph is like a straight line and then sudden fall on this one. In case of aluminium, we are not able to even find that where is the yielding started, or which portion is the straight line portion, and where we can define that the material is having this much yield strength. However, we can find this maximum stress value which is showing the ultimate value. In case of steel also, the maximum stress value which we can find at 0.5 denoted by the ultimate strength or the tensile strength. Apart from this maximum stress value, nothing is available. So we are not able to actually define where is the yield strength of aluminium, and for that purpose we apply a standard procedure. We define one proof stress. Now what is this proof stress? We consider a 0.2% strain condition, and based on that we define this proof stress. What we do actually, this is your stress strain diagram of aluminium. So we consider a point on the strain axis that is 0.2% of strain, or magnitude wise it is 0.002. We draw a line parallel to your original line, and wherever this line cut your stress strain curve, you define that the stress corresponding to that value will be your yield strain. So this stress is also called as the proof stress. And proof stress give a representation of your yield strength in a material where you cannot identify or there is distinguish yield point and elastic limit is available. Actually it is only available for steel material. Otherwise in most of the other materials we have to apply this proof stress philosophy to get the yield strain, and that is corresponding to your 0.002 strain value. Sometimes it is also 0.001 value, but normally if a question will come you have to select this 0.002 strain value. Similarly, if you will make the stress strain diagram for copper and aluminum shows same behavior. Both are FCC material and shows similar kind of stress strain diagram. However, the copper has even lower yield strength value, so the copper will show a graph which is something equivalent to aluminum, but it has a lower value. So this is for your copper, this is for your aluminum, and this is for your mild steel. After finding the stress strain diagram of aluminum, let's move to the stress strain diagram for a brittle material. For example, the cast iron. In case of a brittle material, your stress strain diagram is like a straight line and there is a sudden failure. Because the brittle material does not show any change in length, there is a sudden failure, and the failure normally occur. If I will make the stress strain diagram for cast iron, it will be like a straight line and then there is a sudden failure. So there will not be any indication of change in length. Even I am showing this value, but this is a negligible value. But to make the diagram, I am making this line inclined with the horizontal axis. Otherwise it will be very close to the vertical line and there will be a sudden failure and it will not give any indication of change in length. So in case of your brittle material, we call the failure is catastrophic failure. There is no indication of change in length. If you have a question that there you have to compare the cast iron with steel aluminum, so you should keep the cast iron has the value which is greater than the aluminum and the less than the steel. So this is the region where you can put the cast iron, but I'm not actually putting the cast iron here because when you will read in different books you will find that the cast iron also has a value which is higher than the steel value. Please remember, in case of brittle material we cannot identify any yield condition. We only identify the ultimate or maximum tensile loading condition. So that is corresponding to your ultimate strength of the material. Now the last case where we have to see the stress strain diagram for different steels. So here I am showing three types of steel. One is the mild steel, which we have already seen that here we have the all the phenomena. Then we have high carbon steel. This mild steel is actually covered the low and the medium carbon steel. High carbon steel also has a kind of increase in the length, but if you can see here that it is having a larger ultimate strength value as compared to the mild steel. But when you will see the failure point, in the case of failure point, the change in length is smaller than the change in length observed for the mild steel. That means what happens, as you are increasing the strength, you are losing the ductility, because ductility is what? Ductility is a property which indicate the change in length or increase in the length while reduction in the cross section area. Or we also define the ductility is a property to convert into the wire. So in case of high carbon steel, the failure occur for a less increase in the length. However, for the mild steel, there is a large change in the length, and then we observe the fracture. Similarly, we are also showing the tool steel. Tool steel is almost a brittle material. So we don't have any kind of change in length. There is a linear line, and after that we have the sudden failure. So in case of tool steel, again we cannot identify yield strength. We can only define the ultimate strength of the tool steel. So with this, I'm moving to the next topic. Here we have seen the stress strain diagram for steel, cast iron, aluminium, as well as for the mild steel. And here is the summary of the, so you can see here that the mild steel is having 350 and 420, aluminium 270, 310, copper, stainless steel, and the cast iron. In case of cast iron, we are not having any yield strength. We are only having the ultimate strength, and the range of ultimate strength is from 90 to 1200. But this value is also you may find this value different in different books, so I am not giving any specific value here. Yes, but if you have a comparison, then you should keep the cast iron in between the mild steel and the aluminium. So please remember this part. Now let's move to the next part, where we have to define a very important phenomena, that is the loading and unloading condition, and that is actually related to the strain hardening process. What happens in the industry, whenever you want to increase the strength of a particular piece, you apply loading, and when the material have in the some permanent deformation, you remove the loading. So this loading and unloading actually induce the increase in the strength of the material. So let's understand that part, how we do that. Here I am showing a stress strain diagram of a general ductile material. Please remember, I am not showing the stress strain diagram as we have observed in the mild steel. This is the general stress strain diagram for a ductile material. So when I will increase the loading, the material initially follow a linear path, and this region is actually the elastic region. So if you will remove the loading, the material will go back to its original position. This point actually showing your yield strength, which we have calculated by considering the proof stress. Between the ultimate to yield condition, there is a strain hardening zone and there is a permanent deformation. Suppose I will give a stress or the load to this sigma value, and suddenly I will remove the loading. So what will happen? When I will remove the loading, the material will go back to the original position, but there is some permanent set of deformation. There will be some permanent change in length, and that will be defined by this increase in the length, because up to this point I am assuming that the material is elastic. After that there is a permanent change in length. So whatever change I noted up to this length, this is actually your change in length, and which is your plastic change. So when I will remove the loading at this point, it follow a line which is parallel to your initial phase, and that also indicate that your Young's modulus actually the slope of this line. So Young's modulus is not going to change even though you are giving a permanent deformation and you are removing the load, your Young's modulus will remain the same. So this line actually represent the unloading curve, which is parallel to this line. So these two lines are parallel, and this is your unloading. So material will reduce the length, and this finally whatever will remain here, which is equal to this length. So this is your permanent deformation. Either you will talk about this change in length or this change in length, both are same, because whatever strain generated during the elastic state will recover, but whatever generated after the elastic limit during the plastic deformation will not recover. So this is your permanent deformation. Now if again you will load the material, what I am doing, initially I loaded, then I unloaded, and again I will load the material. If I will increase the loading the material will now start from this point because there is already set of deformation. Now the material will again follow this same path. So it will increase the length with this line only, and this line is a straight line. So please understand that now what up to what point there will be elastic limit, because within during this range if I will remove the loading at any intermediate point, the material will go back to this position. So actually what happened in the material, you have increased the elastic range of your material. Earlier the elastic range was here, but after loading and unloading you have actually increased the elastic limit, and therefore we says that the strain hardening induce the increase in the strength of the material, and when you will reach to this value again it will follow the same path. So what I want to convey, I want to just clarify that during the strain hardening process your strength increases. After that, let's understand what is true stress and true strain. Actually, when we make the stress strain diagram of steel, we initially define that we are going to divide the force value with the initial cross section area. This is your initial cross section area of your bar. But actually what happened, when you will apply the load, one particular section will have reduced area, because as the length is increasing the cross section area will gradually decrease. So every time if you will start dividing the actual cross section area, your stress strain diagram will not follow the same path. Up to this point we assume that there is a very less change in the length, but when the strain hardening process starts, during this region there is a significant change in the cross section area of the material. So your actual curve deviated from the curve which we generally consider by taking the initial cross section area. So this is your stress strain diagram, standard stress strain diagram, and this is your true curve. And true curve follow just gradually increment because your cross section area is reducing every time, and because of that the curve will also have the positive slope, not a negative slope like we are having in this case. So this is your true curve, and based on the true curve we can also define the true stress and true strain. And I am just giving you the formula, and this formula is only important, no need to go and dig out that how we are deriving this formula. You must remember that the true stress is what your standard stress 1 plus your strain, and your true strain is log 1 plus strain. So please remember these two formula. And what is your strain? Your strain is actually change in length divided by the original initial length of the bar. So these two formula is again important for the gate examination. In case of resilience, we are going to consider the area up to the elastic limit. But in case of toughness, toughness is what? Toughness is the property to bear the shock load before the fracture. Therefore, in case of toughness, we are going to consider the area up to the fracture point. This is all about these two terms, and this is the only important thing for modulus of resilience and toughness, that one thing shows the area up to the elastic limit, another one shows the area up to the fracture point. And toughness is what? Toughness is basically resistance for the shock loading. Now the last part of today's section, that what is creep, we have to remember just this definition. And creep is what? Creep is the extension with time under constant loading. Means what? If you are having a bar which is suspended from the roof and you are having a load of mass m, when initially you will apply a mass load, definitely there will be some extension in the length, and that we cover as the strain in the bar. Later on, if you will keep the system for 1 month or 2 months or more, you will find based on the surrounding condition we cannot just specify the time, but after a long gap you may find that there is an extension in the length, further extension in the length. So this further extension in the length actually define the creep, and creep is dependent on the temperature and other environment property, but we are not going to cover here. You must cut, you just know the definition that what is creep. Creep is nothing but the extension with time under the constant or sustained loading. And this is the last and again an important concept. We are defining here three different types of material behavior. In the first case, we are saying that it is an elasto ideal plastic behavior. And what is that? This is your stress strain diagram. This straight line actually showing the elastic part. If you will remove the load, the material will go back to original position. After that, you are having a straight line. Straight line means what? The material is having a plastic flow and load is not increasing. This is actually the ideal plastic behavior. Means you are not increasing the load, but your length is increasing. In the second figure, there is no change in length up to this load value. That means the material is behaving like a rigid material, no deformation up to this stress value, and then suddenly we are having a straight line in the ideal plastic flow. So this behavior is known as the rigid ideal plastic behavior. And the third one is your common material, which your mild steel shows that there is a elastic limit, and after that again you have to increase the load to get the plastic deformation. So this type of material is normally defined as the elastoplastic material, and your mild steel is also an elastoplastic material. So with this note, I am closing this session. If you will go back and check the entire session, multiple informations are there. So I will request all of you that please make note, make the bullets of this chapter and read that bullet time to time. So thank you.